So, hello and a warm welcome to Atlanta from the Unibright team here in Germany. And not to forget, we heard that there's a bunch of Unibright people in the Netherlands watching as well. Finally meeting in person again after 1.5 years. So, hi guys. We are very excited to present here. And yeah, during the next, I guess, around 20 minutes, we will show Baseledger at work, meaning enterprise scale baselining powered by UBT and our products that are based on it.
Exactly. So as Kyle already mentioned, there's been some history, not only concerning Provide and Unibright growing together, but also in the ecosystem around Baseline. So how did we get here? A short history from the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance to Baseledger from the Provide perspective. We met Kyle in the EEA Integration Task Force 2019, where we just tried to answer the question how to synchronize ERP systems by the use of public blockchains. And basically the answer of this integration task force was Baseline, so the protocol initiative for building trust and synchronization of systems using a public blockchain. And I mean, 2020 was a really exciting year. After years of, let's say, pitching a technology, we were finally able to pitch an upcoming solution, a standard. And Baseledger, so our implementation for real-world enterprises making usage of that baseline concepts was really the step towards adoption that Unibright was aiming for. And together with Provide, we came quite far until now. And internally and also in the community, that's why we refer to ourselves as Providebright. And yeah, very happy to be here, and thanks for having us.
Thanks for being here. Okay.
Kyle already mentioned UBT, so the Universal Business Token, and just a short overview how it plays together with all the Unibright products and even former Unibright products, the Providebright baseline as a service stack and everything around. So all of the Unibright developments of the last year, they now come together within Baseledger. All of them require UBT, the Universal Business Token. So just as a short overview, we started with a Unibright framework and our workflow designer in 2017, a graphical tool to abstract blockchain-related complexity. And we will see later that Shuttle, used by Coca-Cola North America, for example, was also inspired by some of the patterns, design patterns, UX patterns, and back-end patterns as well that are that have been established in the workflow designer.
Yeah, and then there's of course conUBC, our Unibright connector, freshly certified by SAP. I guess we'll have a slide on this specifically, and it's a great thing that now finally we have an offering to all sub-customers worldwide via the SAP marketplace. Standardized way for all SAP customers to connect their ERP systems to Baseledger and other blockchains and to the Providebright stack. That's a huge step. As Stefan said, that's another thing that is powered by UBT, as well as, of course, Baseledger itself, our public layer 2 or layer 1.5 blockchain, storing proofs, not business data, and rolling up into Ethereum eventually. A solution which comes with some cool key features like low and predictable gas costs, high performance due to its architecture, its data compliance, something that customers are looking for. And we make sure that everything gets open sourced on GitHub. And of course, last but not least, there's Frequency, which allows for tokenization and liquidity concepts and everything around DeFi. We assume that we might hear more from Frequency in the time to come, because it might serve as a backbone for a lot of NFT use cases as well. Non-fungible tokens as well need technical solutions to be minted, hold in wallets, offered, exchanged, and showcased, like, for example, in a museum. And it's something that we are looking into with frequency. So we have this whole bunch of tools, all powered and driven by UBT, which allow for great enterprise scale blockchain use cases and yeah, baseline concepts at work.
Short overview about UBT in Baseledger itself. There are different levels where UBT plays a role within Baseledger. First of all, it's a usage voucher for all the tools that we just mentioned, like the conUBC connector, also the frequency tools, and of course the complete Providibright stack. It's also a stable payment mechanism for network fees inside Baseledger, and it's also the underlying mechanism for everything that's related to staking and proxy staking. So not only the token which builds and defines the stakes to run the network, but also the mechanism to ensure reward and revenue shares for stakers and proxy stakers. We will come to some of the first findings and some of the first metrics on Baseledger Testnet and UBT and staking metrics later in this presentation. So yeah, the goal together with Provide was from a customer perspective to build a complete offering so you can use the baseline pattern within your existing IT system landscape, and at the same time provide a well-balanced ecosystem which is driven by UBT. Okay, some details. I mean, we learned that there had been some great hackathon kickoff presentations earlier today already. So we already, or you already saw some technical stuff. We will not take it too technical in this keynote, but rather have the high-level view on how customers may use the baseline pattern, or how they implement the baseline pattern, how they can use Baseledger and the Providibright baseline as a service stack. For us, a very vital point here is conUBC, the freshly SAP certified Unibright connector, which is now available in the SAP marketplace. And I mean, for us, we are coming from an SAP world. We're coming from Germany, and SAP is the market leader in enterprise application software, used by companies of all sizes in all industries. And yeah, funny side fact: 77% of the world's transaction revenue touches an SAP system. So it's
just looked it up.
Very good to start.
Yeah. So I guess the importance of conUBC is enormous for us. Let's say all companies that are thinking about doing something with blockchain or baselining something, they all have the pain that they need a standardized and compliant way to connect their ERP systems, as they do today when they're connecting to legacy systems or whatever. And now with conUBC in the SAP marketplace and officially supported by SAP, we have this first initial offering that is just running out of the box and offers a frictionless connection from ERP systems or all SAP systems into the blockchain world. And this is, it's huge. It's the first step. If we don't have this one, then companies just can't on a large scale walk into blockchain. That's our...
And we're working together with conCircle on this. Of course, we made sure that conUBC offers native connection to Baseledger from the very beginning and to the Providibright stack from the very beginning. I mean, these are the bases on. Kyle will go into details later with the Kona case, I guess. But there are also other projects already coming up that are not yet baseline, but still use the conUBC to connect to blockchain networks. For example, the EU-related VetBlock initiative or the Daimler spin-off Blocksmove. Both are already using conUBC. Both of them hopefully will migrate into using the baseline pattern and Baseledger as well. And tomorrow there is another presentation from Stefan Rauch from conCircle, who will go into detail on how conUBC works within SAP, and perhaps we'll also mention some details of these first projects.
Yeah, and it should be even something where you see multiple SAP systems communicating with one another using conUBC and doing baselining, doing real baselining with SAP-powered business processes.
Yeah, and talking about standards, one goal of the Baseledger team and also of Unibright, of course, is also to actively contribute to the standard. There are two concepts that we implemented in the first testnet implementations of Baseledger in the, for example, in the Lakewood testnet. Two concepts, sync tree and trust mesh, which will also be presented to the public during that hackathon phase here at EthAtlanta. So we will actively work on it and also work on a format where we can actively contribute it to the community, perhaps as a baseline improvement proposal. Just in short, these are two concepts to use Baseledger from a client perspective. We noticed that before something is strictly, let's say, baseline compliant at the current version of the standard, and before we exit our layer 2 Baseledger into Ethereum, that there are a lot of communications between business participants that are more or less exchange of different versions of an object, or having a negotiation if we are actually allowed to move into the next work step. And to make all this a little bit faster and more feasible in terms of how Baseledger works, we came up with these two concepts. One is, let's say, a versioning of documents, which is anchored in Baseledger and then rolled up into Ethereum. And sync tree is a way on how to represent a business object, a large business object like SAP objects, for example, and to exchange them between systems. So yeah, it's a way of perhaps limiting knowledge down to a zero knowledge grade, and more to follow on these concepts is also in Stefan Rauch's presentation. And as I mentioned, we plan to publish a baseline improvement proposal as well. Everything that we build here within Baseledger is always planned to find its way into the complete Providibright stack. It's always planned to find its way into the open source ecosystem. So these should not be closed concepts, but improve the complete way how the baseline pattern can be used within companies.
Yeah, I guess that's the important thing to mention, that it's a working solution. It's the implementation of the core baseline concepts. So it's a solution for using a public blockchain that is employed to anchor proofs of objects that are being exchanged. These are signed by all parties involved, and then you come up with this legally binding trust on the data that's being exchanged. I mean, this is what Baseline was all about, and now we have built an implementation that is, let's say, it just works. So it's fast enough. It can handle really large purchase orders and deliveries. We had this running here in the systems, so it's usable. And as Stefan said, we will contribute it to the public for review, and of course for other people to work on it and to extend it. We assume that's a huge step forward for getting baselining done by enterprises and for their purposes.
And especially in the last days, there have been some very vital discussions in the baseline community, also in the public Slack, where especially our friends from SAP contributed a lot of very great ideas and helpful ideas. And I think they will also find value in these kind of concepts. The next weeks and months will show some more projects. And again, Stefan Rauch's presentation tomorrow will show also some details.
This was my idea too, to emphasize on Stefan Rauch's presentation, because you will see some practical details as well, because Trust Mesh is, and Sync Tree, it's about visualization as well. So how can we visualize a workflow that is being synchronized between multiple parties? How can we show approvals and rejections and versioning? That's a multi-dimensional thing, and that's why we came up with this Trust Mesh. And it's beautiful, I think. You can have a look at it, and we really like it. And yeah, we assume we will hear more from it.
Yeah, and moving from pure, let's say, commercial customer cases more into the institutional world. I mean, we are based in Germany. And we are also having great connections into the institutional world here in Europe. especially with our Unibright Benelux branch and Jack Wearing and friends. And a current thing that we also published some weeks ago is that we are working on a POC and on a feasibility study for the European Investment Fund. So some infos on the shareholders of EIF. It's the European Union, it's the European Investment Bank, and
public and private banks.
Public-private banks, a wide range of public institutions. And they are also actively looking into possibilities of using blockchains for their processes. And one of these examples would be taking a look into a EU-wide lending platform. We will not go into details because this is still work in progress, and we are working on a feasibility study which also contains a POC, of course, based on the baseline patterns and using Baseledger. We're doing this together with our Serbian friends from FinSpot, who also showed a tokenization case at last year's baseline demo day. So the study will examine the potential to improve service provisions to EF clients and counterparts, including financial institutions, small and medium-sized enterprises, auditors and external auditors, and analytics that are running on this data. And everything that we can provide with the baseline pattern is, of course, to allow trust and synchronization over these different parties.
I mean, namely, it's their core mission. EIF's core mission is to support Europe's small and medium-sized businesses and giving them finance or helping them to access, for example, credits or venture capital. So it's the core process we are looking into. How can we baseline the lending platform? And I mean, that's a huge thing. And thinking, or given the shareholders that we just mentioned, it's also a great door opener to get the whole idea of baselining and Baseledger and blockchain in general addressed towards banks here in Europe, but also to official bodies like the European Bank.
Yeah, and it's also a good sign that, I mean, coming back to the storytelling around blockchain, that now we have something to tell, not only like storing data in a public blockchain, but using a blockchain to add additional trust to the process. If you take a look at the different steps of a lending process, like applications, negotiations, the actual accreditation, offers, granted funds, the auditing and reporting, there are so many steps that are happening between different parties. And the good thing about the baseline pattern is that you add value to the process with every single work step that gets baselined. So it's really a win-win for all participants, for auditors, and for the process itself. Yeah, we are very excited, but of course the feasibility study itself is still work in progress, and we are very happy to give, I think, updates in November or December latest about this.
Yeah, I mean, there have been talks about tokenization and how does tokenization work on a large scale as well. I mean, this is something that I guess multiple institutions are looking into. Might be another area where we can work together. So that's great, and that's why we selected this use case as our customer use case for today. And Stefan auch can showcase Daimler-Benz Blocksmove tomorrow, for example. But there are great things that are moving into the space, I guess.
Yeah, and the purpose of our currently promoted testnet is to support these commercial cases like Kona, and to support institutional cases like on the EIF. So, and one finding that we want to learn from the testnet operation is, of course, the right metrics for everything around Baseledger and staking. So these are the current numbers that we are coming up with here in September 2021. Of course, these numbers may change because we are still in testnet operation. But the idea coming from a performance point of view is that we will have around or not more than 100 validator nodes.
That seems to be the sweet spot for performance versus security.
Yeah, decentralization and performance. And we are talking about 50,000 UBT up to 1 million UBT, where we most probably will cap the staking power per validator. So this gives you, or should give you a feeling how these validator nodes are distributed and built. And of course, interesting for all as UBT itself is very well decentralized already. It's also interesting for all the proxy stakers that perhaps do not hold biggest bags of UBT, that per validator node, we are thinking about allowing up to 100 proxy stakers per validator. And this proxy staking should be possible from lower amounts like 500 UBT already. And it's also very important to have the idea that we have the idea of a revenue share and staking reward competition between the validators. So it's not like a decentralized metrics that are decided on once and that are not about to change, because each validator can talk to potential proxy stakers by offering them better revenue share or staking.
They should not be carved in stone. I mean, that's some other thing that we file under decentralization. I mean, that's just competition. So there's different approaches to this. And decentralization in general is a very important word here, because we will make sure that we move towards a decentralized governance structure controlled by the community, or let's say by the UBT holders. If that is a cooperative or an association or a foundation, we'll see. We're talking with the lawyers here. But of course, solution can't be like today that Unibright controls in a large degree the testnet. This is not a way to move forward. That's not what we envision. It will be a completely decentralized thing. And more news to this will come shortly.
Yeah, and it's really important for us to make clear that it's not good for a decentralized network if centralized parties have too much of decision power on, for example, future metrics. And I mean, this is also kudos to Kyle and Provide at this point once again, because what Provide is also really great at is building these ecosystems and networks and getting all the contacts into the play. I mean, we not only met Kyle and Provide in the last 3 years, but really got to know great parties from all over the world. And we are currently talking to many of them for running testnet nodes. And of course, we also, if we want to build the decentralized governance structures, all the vital players that brought Baseline to the point where it is now with that ratified standard like 2 days ago, of course, they all should play a role in how the decentralized governance structure is built within the next weeks. Yeah. So this is perhaps a good point to have a short outlook on next year. So of course, currently we are building the Baseledger mainnet, Unibright, and all our friends from Consensus Mesh, and ensuring that Baseledger will find the transition from a testnet to the mainnet. Of course, we built the mentioned community-driven decentralized Baseledger governance structure, and we actively contribute to the baseline standard, or at least to the improvement proposals, where we just gave 2 examples with Trust Mesh and Synctree.
Yeah, and then of course we'll work our way into NFTs on Baseledger, or perhaps on baseline NFTs. And talking about tokens, we of course are talking about a well-incentivized, tokenized ecosystem with UBT, and that's why we have some bullet points for UBT as well on this slide. UBT is already established within all industries and clients, and we will continue to move it that way. We will make sure that UBT stays the voucher for all products like it is today. And of course, part of it is also to establish UBT with all relevant exchanges for customers to get access to the token they need. So that's all we're working on. It's a very full schedule, but it's a very complete one as well. It feels like everything we are doing the last years now perfectly funnels into Baseledger. So that's exciting, and Unibright and Unibright times ahead. So yeah, we are quite confident, and would like to thank you for your attention. If this format it's not for questions, I guess you're coming at the end or to the end now.
Yeah, and giving it back to Kyle and showing some more details on the Kona case and
yeah, cool. And Shuttle.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Good to have you, as always. So yeah, I think to continue from there, I'd like to show a quick demo of Shuttle.
If you're talking to us, we can't hear you, but
I'm not.
This might be a thing on our end.
Okay.
So so Shuttle is obviously this product we've been working on that aims to make it a lot simpler for organizations to adopt the baseline pattern. And so a quick demo from the context of Kona. Let me see if I can. Yeah, that looks good. So if I wanted to create, let's say my name was Andrei, and I wanted to create a new ecosystem using the baseline, using the baseline pattern, I could use our Shuttle product to avoid the CLIs and to just, have a very straightforward experience. In setting that up. So I just created an organization and a vault on the provide stack using Shuttle. And let's say that I want to create a work group, a baseline work group for bottlers and raw material suppliers for under the Coca-Cola North America account. So what this does, it really lets the user set up the configuration very quickly, and to share resources such as a multi-tenant SAP environment with ecosystem participants. So I'm essentially showing a demo of the ecosystem operator, leveraging the provide stack in a self-hosted way, meaning they're going to deploy all the infrastructure to their Azure environment. I'll enter some fake Azure credentials here. And then essentially, there's a bunch of bottlers, and Andrei's gonna. Why don't you join me on stage, Andrei? Andrei's gonna speak next anyway about the Kona ecosystem, and yeah, I got the slides. So Kona shares a multi-tenant SAP environment and makes that available as the IT services provider for Coca-Cola. There's 12 large bottlers that use that multi-tenant SAP system. And Shuttle makes it very easy to configure the middleware, for example, MuleSoft and SAP PI up front to expose those resources to those bottlers. So this is a pretty common integration pattern that you'll see across many enterprises. It's not that straightforward and definitely not easy to configure, for organizations, especially in the current landscape. So Shuttle really makes it a lot easier. You can expose more than one system of record. We call those connections. So let's go on. So then you select a network. You select your layer 1 network. So let's say that we're going to use, since this is just a development environment, we would use Ropsten. And then for layer 2, we would use Baseledger, for example. Why wouldn't we use Baseledger? There's a disclaimer about the vault that's being used. And like this just really just streamlines the setup process and onboarding. Yeah, so once you connect your ecosystem, you really are able to invite bottlers, and then they can invite raw material suppliers, and you have sort of that 2 degrees of separation that Shuttle provides in the ecosystem. And then that's where the workflow designer comes in, and we're looking at a 1.0 release of that in the coming, definitely this year, in the coming months. Yeah, I like that. Okay, yeah. So let me also now share Andrei's slides now that I've been able to give it a bit of a teaser there. You gotta flip it there.
Can you hear me? Perfect. Well, first of all, thanks everybody for coming here this Friday. Really excited to be here and represent Kona. So you heard history about Unibright and Provide. Just want to bring a little bit of history of Kona here. I met Kyle in 2018 in the hackathon ETH 1.0. And that time we were working on the idea of using the blockchain for our enterprise use cases. And I'm just bringing this slide here to not to talk about what the Coca-Cola brand is, but really at the bottom left corner, the number shows that in order for the Coca-Cola brand to be in every store, there are 250 bottlers worldwide who are doing this on a day-to-day basis. And the bottlers are really the ones who are putting the liquid in the bottles and deliver it to the stores. So if you flip to the next slide, Kyle. That's the view of North America. In North America alone, we have about 60 bottlers who are independent franchise owners, and they operate their business, they have their own IT stacks, their own companies, and they're not connected to each other. And the goal of Kona was to onboard 12 largest bottlers in North America into one platform so we can provide them a single system to operate and run their business. You can flip to the next slide. And really the view of 12 bottlers is not limited by 12 bottlers because we're playing the role of suppliers to other mid-sized, smaller bottlers, also the buyers of some of the product. And there's a complex supply chain processes involved here. So the idea of using blockchain in these processes was very clear. We want to bring it, we want to create a network of trust where all these participants can operate as they would use the single system. And today we're using our private network, definitely realizing ROI and benefits of using it, understanding why it's important to continue investing in the blockchain technology. But the private network really put you into these walled gardens. You're not able to easily onboard a supplier or a customer. Everybody's building their own private nets. So the idea of having a standard like baseline would help everybody understand how to baseline their system of records. Also having a connector to your system of record like conUBC that's now available on the SAP market is a great idea to have to your go to your supplier, talk to them, and onboard them very quickly using the standard and using the connector that is available for them to use. So I think I don't want to take more time here, but
I think another thing to add there, though, is just how important it is for the ecosystem to have partners like Kona to develop, these production-ready solutions that automate onboarding. Just in such complicated environments, it's been a real special honor to work with you over the past year.
Yeah, thank you, Kyle. And I think we look forward to implementing this in production, because it makes so much easier to pass this barrier of adoption of solution. And I think for enterprises, it doesn't really matter, is it a blockchain, is it public, private? It's all about the efficiency and how they can run their business with less friction and less requirement on hiring resources, build API, connect to APIs, right? If you put this all behind the standard or behind a real product, then the adoption will be much easier.
Yeah, thanks, Andrei.
Thank you.
Cool.